for Be Seen on Air. Now we are working with and chatting with Bishop Dr. Smith. So, Bishop, thank you for being here with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for the privilege and opportunity.
Oh, that. Wow. So one of the first things that I want to start talking about is the wonderful event that you had this weekend and why you felt it was necessary.
Well, what I'm doing is, we're talking to a lot of people who've been asking me, hey, Bishop, what's up with all of this division? Mm-hmm. What's your take on it?
Right.
And so we're starting to dialogue with people that you ordinarily wouldn't dialogue with. Mm-hmm. And we got to a point where I'm showing a certain blueprint: toleration, appreciation, integration, and assimilation. And so doing those things can get you to the table. And so what we did yesterday was an awesome example of like-minded people want to solve solutions.
Right. So for those that don't know what happened yesterday, why don't you start with that a little bit?
What happened yesterday was basically the media, unfortunately, has been showing a side that the majority, I don't want to say it this way, but I'll just say it, a lot of people was against police officers.
Okay.
I didn't want that spirit to linger in Battle Creek.
Okay.
There's a lot of officers in Battle Creek that's doing a great job. You have bad apples everywhere. You
Sure.
got bad preachers. There's preachers that don't like, there's folks that don't like me. You got bad lawyers. You got bad doctors. But you just can't throw everybody out.
Yeah.
And so I felt as my responsibility as one of the leaders is to show that we're going to respect and show some solidarity to these men and women who risk their lives every single day. Mm-hmm. And that's what we did. And we invited them, and you know what? They all came 4th of July weekend. It was amazing.
Yeah, excellent. As you look at the healing process and how you begin to help people understand that, you threw out a few key concepts as you started talking, but how do you begin to get them to now start to communicate?
Now, because I have my own show, I try not to say too much, so that's why I'm rushing. So you tell me when it's time to kick in.
Okay.
As a man of God, I think the spirit of reconciliation in the world, is what we're trying to accomplish. So no matter what my color is, no matter what my preference are, whatever my stance in public politics, how do I have the spirit to reconcile? Everybody need to have that spirit to want to reconcile. And then when you do that, we don't just want toleration. See, that's where we start at.
Yeah.
I'm tolerating you, you tolerating me. But then we move to appreciation.
Okay.
Now I'm tolerating you, but now I'm appreciating you. And then once I understand, now look, we're integrating. You had me and Rank on the same platform. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine that? That was amazing. And then once we begin to integrate, then we can assimilate. I think sometimes we try to assimilate before we get to the toleration, appreciation, and the integration.
Right. So, as you start to have that conversation, and I have been very intentional about trying to talk with individuals and to help us be on a platform of a common language. Mm-hmm. And I often find I talk a lot and I write a lot, I read a lot, consequently, that we don't often use the same words in the same way.
Sure.
And words that would be a verb for someone are a noun for someone else. Mm-hmm. And so how do we get them on the same definitional page and make our way through these things so that we can move beyond tolerating each other and begin to have a full appreciation of what even definitions of words might mean?
Well, for an example, and this is not designed to give people a shout out or endorsement, but Jeannie, for an example, I believe she's a Republican chairlady or chair party. Mm-hmm. She just one day made a phone call. Hey, Bishop, I have questions. Mm-hmm. And I said, awesome.
Yeah.
Let's talk about them. And she invited over 30 people that had the same similar background.
Right.
That's how it starts. We got to get away from this fear.
Right.
And I don't want you to have to walk on eggshells. And I don't want to walk on eggshells. Mm-mm. And then we have to have the respect for each other. One big key word is racist. We got that backwards.
Yeah.
Racist is not, I'm black and you're white. We got that backwards. And so now you have to be careful what words you say, because folks just shooting off, oh, she's racist. No, we have preferences. We may be prejudiced. I'm probably the most prejudiced guy there is.
Yeah.
I raised 2 children. And I was very prejudiced and very preference. I made sure my wife and I created an environment so my children was in a certain neighborhood to get a certain kind of education.
Okay.
So I had to prepare for that day. Did that mean it was hard? But yes, I was not going to put my child. Now, when someone said, well, Bishop, everybody don't have that chance. We have to start somewhere.
Right.
And racism is when you won't let that person progress. Nothing to do with color. I use this all the time. In Monopoly, we start off at, let's just say $1,500. I don't remember. But let's say $1,500. I get $1,500. Cherry, you get $500. I own Boardwalk and Parkway. And I own the other hotels. We roll the dice. How long will you stay in the game?
Not very.
That's what racism is.
Okay.
So you may already be ahead, like the previous guest you just had. That's a 3rd generation of Meyer. Congratulations for him. He shouldn't have to feel bad that he was a benefit. But at the same time, if I want to start a dynasty, so my grandson, they allow me to do that by not having things in a way. If I have a 700 credit score and you have a 700 credit score, and I have equity and you have equity, and I have a great history of payment and you have a great history of payment, then allow me to get the same approval you got.
Sure.
That's how you fix it.
Right. You know, there are things that we can do, because you had already brought this up in terms of preferences and that sort of thing. So how do we step up and step forward, be convicted about making sure that we do things to solidify a direction for our children? The
leaders that's in the positions is being monitored and being held accountable.
Okay.
I mean, that's really it. It's not really a real magic wand for one group. The same way you breathe, the same way you live, the same way I breathe, the same way I live.
Right.
My home may have been, you mentioned about words. Perfect. The word conservative from your world could be totally different from my world.
Right.
Conservative means to us, we want to keep things the way they are.
Huh.
So when you say, I'm conservative, I'm like, well, no, I don't want her to be conservative because she don't want to change things. But you saying, no, the values are the same. You and I have probably more values similar than most people.
Right.
I mean, you'll be amazed that the black community probably is one of the most conservative from your definition than most people.
Yeah.
Very conservative, very organized. But the word conservative tells us we don't want to change status quo.
Huh.
And that's what we don't. So I shared that with her, and she said, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So when you come to my rally, if you have the candidate say, we're conservative, you lost me. Even though we got the same values.
Right. All right, so that's fascinating to
Yes.
me. And, you know, and unless folks are willing to have a deep enough conversation, you never begin to understand those definitions and word choices.
Because we don't eat together, we don't hang out together, we don't do nothing together.
Well, apparently we should.
Yeah, and that is the whole message here. That's what we're doing right now. I'm here with Hollywood.
Well, I don't know about that, but, you know, so one of the things that I find refreshing is that you're willing to have the conversations.
Yes.
You know, I've been in conversations where I unintentionally offended somebody, and it wasn't over the word conservative, it was over gardening, actually. And they were unwilling to let me know what it was that I offended them with. And unless I can learn from those words, you have to help me to know better. Because I wouldn't have known what other words to use to complement them as I thought I was doing. So it is a two-way street in terms of conversation and understanding and being able to move in a direction where the whole community benefits.
Yes,
right?
yeah. I mean, it's that powerful verse in 2 Corinthians 5:18 where it says we're given the ministry of reconciliation, and then verse 19 says we're given the word. I have to share words that's going to help us. That's our intent.
Right.
We can't have separate agendas or we'll never get there.
Right.
How do we come together just by sharing words? The monuments. I mean, that's like really huge. Someone called me and said, Bishop, So what you think about this? I told them I didn't take my children on summer breaks. We always did it on fall. I took them to Virginia. I took them to all the places so I could teach them the good things. If you get rid of all the so-called things that is bad, then I don't have nothing parallel to teach.
Yeah.
So I'm not really one that's saying take it down. I mean, they haven't been down all these years. And look at me. I mean, why tear down George Washington? Because if I don't know about George Washington, what would make me study and search somebody that worked with George?
Yeah.
I don't think I agree with this, because now we're destroying total history.
Yeah.
And history is very, very important, because if you don't know your history, we're subject to start repeating it. Mm-hmm. So you're talking to a black man that says, no, I don't agree with doing this. It doesn't really matter. It has nothing to do with the success of an individual. That is a ceremonial experience. It doesn't change me at all.
Right.
And that evilness that's in people, that's going to require God. I don't know if we're allowed to even say that nowadays.
Sure.
But that's going to require God to change the heart of man. The heart of man can't change unless God changes him.
Right.
So we can regulate you, but you can't change a person's heart.
No. Values, attitudes, beliefs, all of those things are not going to change without, in some cases, God as that structure. One of the other things, we had talked a little bit about Black Lives Matter, and one of the things that I find really interesting is that when I say Black Lives Matter, it doesn't mean that white lives don't matter at all.
Absolutely.
It's really more of an intentional look at how we can begin to reshape a conversation. So I don't know how you tackle that particular issue.
It's value. Value is what matters. Now, that doesn't make it right, but that's what society is saying. You're not going around killing or hurting or harming people that's not bringing too much value. It's just not going to happen. So what I do is I create a structure where I'm building people in a community so powerful that let's rethink before we do things. But they were able to jump on a title, great name, it brought awareness to our world, great name, but Black Lives Matter is not really the black person.
Yeah.
That's just a great movement, and they're using a great name. But my experience is, you're right, all lives should matter, back to the heart of man. But you're not going to see too many Jewish people being beat up. You know why? Because they created such a strong value about themselves, and folks around them value them. We got to build value of each other. You're going to value me now, I'm going to value you now, and then we're going to value each other's children. I'm going to say, well, I know her children. And then there's a way about relationships. Yeah. It's about building relationships. I think those are still all things to get you off track, or a reason to stay mad. The Bible says, be angry and sin not. If I stay mad at you, I can't even rationally solve a problem. I refuse to be mad. Yeah. And I refuse to harbor. Believe me, I've seen it. I've had a cross burn. I've experienced it. Yeah. I've been treated bad by police officers. See, I'm not the person that single child, I was raised single parent. I'm not the child that was born with a silver spoon. But my children, they're kind of close to that silver spoon thing. I made it happen. Yeah. That was an evil person. That wasn't the system. That was an evil person. Address the evil person. Yeah. And not throw away the whole system. God is a God of order. How can we say we believe in God, but then now we're saying let's get rid of order? We're changing the structure of family. Those are all issues I struggle with. So that's my take on that. Excellent.
As we look at taking steps forward, I know you got to have a nice meeting with Jeannie and several others. Are there more planned down the road? How can we intentionally plan more of it down the road? I just want to learn more.
One great plan we're doing is a lot of people who were around, they believe that the Bible is inspired. So at least we got something that we can talk about. Right. People that don't even have that comment, it's kind of hard to talk. We got to have something we all agree on neutrally. And I share that, Noah had the three, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. There's a book coming out I'm putting together. Those three sons represented our nationality, they were all dispersed. They all bring something to the table. They all at one time ruled. We at one time did rule. What's going to rule now is everybody come together that's going to bring some glory to God. And again, I don't want to just keep pushing that on people, but to repeat history, that's all we're doing now. Well, white man did this. Well, but there was one time we had this before you did it to us. See? So it's not, we need to educate everybody so you don't have to keep walking on eggshells, and I can trust that when you see me inside of the elevator, you're not going to get nervous.
Yeah.
And that's going to take a relationship.
Sure.
If you saw me inside of the elevator, you right now, whether you knew my title or not, my certain about my spirit would make you feel comfortable. Let's change that.
Yeah, I like that.
Let's change that.
Yeah. You know, and I do think that we have many starting points that are similar, you know, especially as you start looking towards our children and when we have children and what we'd like our children to be and become and what we'd like for them to have. We might use different words for it.
Yeah.
But there are, I think, starting points that, you know, we can follow and move forward. And you're right, you can sense the spirit of individuals that you're around.
Absolutely. And I will say this, which I just love the chance to be with you. I deal with facts and I remove personality, I remove feelings, and that's not always easy.
Right, it's not.
But I'll deal with the data. For an example, I'll say, okay, the 1800s, as they dealt with the Civil War, how they dealt with the modified policy. How did they deal with the slaves who were now free? And if we learn that according to history, they were free, but they didn't have the tools, so then they become sharecroppers.
Yeah.
We got to fix stuff like that.
Yeah.
See, it has nothing to do with races again. It was economic. If the South Side was use of labor, you're really taking money from me. It wasn't personal. It really wasn't.
No.
And I know a lot of folks don't want to believe that, but now it's 2020. Just give us the same opportunity, and then you see the world being better. And those who want to use the excuse of being white or being black or Hispanic or Latino just to fight another agenda, they will fade off the scene. Let's have one agenda to try to work together. That's the most powerful thing in the world. And the most important thing in life is to produce life. And you need a male and a female, and they produce life.
It's amazing how that happens.
That's the greatest miracle on earth, if you can produce life.
Yeah.
And if you and I together, we're producing life today. Somebody's watching us and saying, wow, look, two different people bringing a smile on our face.
Yeah.
That's what we're supposed to be doing. And that gives you and I a better hope to say, I'll wake up tomorrow and I'll do it again.
Oh, yeah. Yes. All right. Well, I want to thank you for joining me, and I can hardly wait to have you back and talk to me some more. And maybe we'll structure it a little bit differently next time and really go into some different things. But I really appreciate you coming on and
thank you very
chatting
much
with me.
for the chance.
Yes, and I've learned some new things today.
Okay.
So this has been awesome. All right. So now I want to invite you to stay tuned, because coming up next, we're going to talk with Kimberly Hinckley, and we're going to talk a little bit about the elections coming up and really what all that might mean for you. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.